Very good day to all of you students. Today I shall teach you class 10th history lesson 1, and the name of chapter is the making of a global world, and it's a part 1 of this chapter. Student, first I shall tell you what is globalization. Globalization, it refers to an economic system of the last 50 years, and we will read in this chapter a history of the making of global world. We will read about its trade, migration of people in search of work, and the movement of capital, and we will read different phases of globalization. We will read about the ancient time, medieval time, and of the 19th century. Student, our first point is human societies interlinked. So how the human societies interlinked? Student, from ancient time, travelers, traders, priests, pilgrims, so they traveled vast distances for knowledge, for opportunities, and for spiritual fulfillment. And student, they carried goods, monies, values, skills, ideas, invention, and even germs and disease. And as early as 3000 BCE, coastal trade linked the Indus Valley civilization with present day West Asia. And student, cowries and cowdy or seashell were used as a form of currency. Again, I am telling you, student, cowries and cowdies, COWRIES, cowries or cowdy, COWDI, or seashells. These were used as a form of currency, and from the Maldives they found their way to China and East Africa. Student, our next point is food offers cultural exchange. Food offers cultural exchange. Student, food offers long distance cultural exchange in distant part of the world. Student, travelers and traders introduced new crops to the lands they traveled. Wherever the travelers and the traders they went, they introduced new crops to the lands they travel, and even ready food stuff, ready-made food in the distant part of the world. And for example, student, noodles traveled west from the China to become spaghetti. Spaghetti means Italian food. Again, I am telling you, student, for example, noodles traveled west from China to become spaghetti. Arab traders took pasta to 5th century Sicily. And similarly, foods were known to the Indians and the Japanese people. And student, our major common foods are potatoes, soya, groundnuts, maize, tomatoes, chilies, sweet potatoes. And these were not known in India until about the 5 centuries ago. These were introduced in Europe and Asia after the discovery of Americas by Christopher Columbus. Student, our next point is importance of new crops. So new crops keep importance in the lives of poor people. New crops keep importance in the lives of the poor people. So how it keeps importance for the Lives of the poor people, student. With the introduction of potatoes in Europe, the poor begin to eat better and live longer. And in Ireland, poor peasants were so much dependent on potatoes that when disease destroyed the potato crop in the mid 1840, then student hundreds of thousands died of starvations. And hungry children used to dig for potatoes in the field that had already been harvested. And thousands of people emigrate in search of work. Student, our next point is changes due to the new sea routes. So there were changes in the world with the discovery of the new sea route to America. There were changes in the world due to the discovery of new sea routes to America. And student, with the discovery of America, its vast land, abundant crops, and minerals, transformed trades and lives everywhere in the world. And precious metals from the mines in Peru and Mexico increased the wealth of Europe and financed its trade with the Asia. And student, many expeditions set off in search of El Dorado, the fabled city of gold. Student, our next point is centers of world trade. Before the 18th century, the center of the world trade was Asia. China and India were among the world's richest country. And from the 15th century, China restricted overseas contract and retreated into isolation. From the 15th century, China restricted overseas contracts and retreated into isolation. China reduced the role and rising importance of the Americas gradually moved the center of the world trade westward, and student, Europe now emerged as the center of world trade. Europe now emerged as the center of world trade. And student, our next point is three types of movement. Three types of movement or three types of flows within the international economic exchanges. So first is the flow of trade, which is referred to the largely to trade in goods, for example clothes or wheat. And second is the flow of labor, the migration of people in search of employment. And third is the movement of capital for short term or long term investment over long distance. Three types of movement. First is the flow of trade, that is of cloth and wheat. Second is the flow of labor, that the migration of people in search of employment. And third is the movement of capital for short term or long term investment over the long distances. Student, next point is Corn Law and its effect. Student, the corn laws were laws that allowed the government to restrict the import of corns. So what is corn law? Corn laws were laws that allowed the government to restrict the import of corn. And in Britain, population growth had increased the demand for food grain. As urban center expanded, industries grew, so demand for the agriculture product increased. In Britain, student, population population growth has demanded for the food grain. As the urban center expanded, industries grew, so demand for the agriculture product increased, and it leads to the rise in food grain prices. A student, after the abolition of the corn laws, food could be imported cheaply. After the abolition of the corn laws, food could be imported at a cheap rate. Thus, vast area of land were left uncultivated, and unemployment increased. So they flocked to the cities for job or migrated overseas. This also led to the lowering in the living standard, and there was a social conflict. From mid 19th century, faster industrial growth in Britain led to the higher income, and more foods were imported. To meet these demands, lands were cleared around the world in the Eastern Europe, Russia, America, and Australia. Student, I have taught you one part of this chapter. Rest of the thing I shall tell you in the next video. So student, I think you might have understood. You like it, you share it to the other student to get education, and you subscribe it for my next educational video. Thank you. Have a nice day. God bless you all.